What's going on, travel family? Adventure is near and far, and Point Noirians, welcome back home. This is another broadcast from Point Noir, home of the Point Noir podcast, where we not only inspire, but equip men of color to go out and see the world for themselves. As always, I'm your host and audio tour guide for this experience, Jerry III, aka the one and only Kimono Jack, and I'm so thrilled you're here with us for the 42nd session of the Point Noir podcast. We have another amazing man of color coming up to share his experience with you all. And I get this question a lot. How can I support the show? Can I donate? Can I buy a passport? We don't have anything really set up for that now. So while we have our amazing engineers or financial experts figure that out, how to do that legally and make sense, what you can do is support the show by 1, sharing it with someone that has never heard of it before and is interested in traveling and exploring, and 2, leaving us a review on iTunes. Whatever your honest opinion of the show is, we have all 5-star ratings right now, which is a beautiful thing. Would love to keep it going, but also we're open to opportunities to, improve. So let us know how you feel. Share a session and rate us. That would be a great way to show your support because it shows others that they might find something of value here too. So with that all being said, we have another great guest coming up. So let's introduce them. Joining us today at the Point as our special guest is Erick Prince, aka the Minority Nomad. If you haven't heard of Erick yet, make sure you follow him on Instagram at Minority Nomad and check out his vlog, his blog, his photography, and all the other content he's creating at his website, minoritynomad.com. He's found a way to brand himself as a career traveler, a lifelong traveler, someone who's creating content, sharing perspectives about all the different places he sees around the world. And I can guarantee you one thing from this hour of interview is that you will be challenged by some of the stuff he shares. He brings a lot of hard truth, some real talk, and I love that he does that for all of us listening. I got to benefit by listening to it, by listening to the edits. It was just enriching for me. It was great. So I think you'll love it too. Also, we had to use a different recording format, so please forgive us for the audio quality. I promise you the message and the power is all there. You will be inspired, you will be challenged, and hell, you might be buying a one-way ticket somewhere soon. So as always, you know the drill. 3 steps. 1, grab your refreshing beverage of choice. 2, find that cozy, comfy corner of the couch and curl up. And 3, sit back and enjoy today's session. I'll see you on the flip side. Hey, what's going on, Erick? Thanks for joining us today at The Point. How are you feeling today, fam?
I'm good, man. Thanks so much for doing this, man. I appreciate it.
Dude, thanks for making the time. You are a busy man. You are out here circumnavigating the globe. Like you're crushing it. So glad to make it work, man. And your patience is much appreciated. You having a good day so far?
Oh, good. It's midday here in Bangkok now. Last few days in town before the Thai New Year, and I'm back on the road. So yeah, man, just enjoying being home for a couple of weeks.
There's a Thai New Year? What's that about?
Oh man, it's amazing. It's one of the greatest things you ever see in your life, man. It's basically Thai New Year is the world's largest water fight. It's 4 or 5 days of family and friends getting together and just pouring water all over each other. It's basically a rebirth. That's actually what it is. It's you're washing away your bad luck and your sins and starting a year fresh. Yeah.
I've never heard of that. I've heard of Chinese New Year. We have our New Year, but that's a new one for me.
Yeah, Thai New Year's amazing. It's called Songkran.
What? That's what's up, man. So let's just dive right into it, man. How did you get started traveling and adventuring? And then we're just gonna pick at things from there.
Military, man. Really, like a lot of brothers in the States, that was my way out, so to speak. I joined the military when I was 18, and I've pretty much been on the road ever since. I'm 36 now, so almost 20 years.
Wow. And are you still enlisted? Are you still involved?
No, I left the military. I did 10 and a half years.
Okay.
I got worn out from what I was doing. I went in right before 9/11. So, okay. I went into one world and ended up in another. So after 10 and a half years of that, deployments and, terrible pay and trauma type things. So I decided to walk away from that and go back to uni. Went to University of Texas. While I was studying there, I came up with this idea to travel the world and get more people of color out here. And, here I am about, let's say, 6, 7 years after starting that project.
Yeah, you're deep in the game. And so
Yeah.
let's take it back. Did you always travel as a kid before you enlisted in the military?
No,
What was growing up like for
no,
you?
no, no. Never. I'd never been out of Cleveland, really. Like, I
Wow.
grew up in Cleveland. And the furthest I had ever been was a road trip with my foster parents to Texas. That
Okay.
was that was the furthest from Cleveland I'd ever been. But growing up with my mom, I had a single mom. She had 10 of us, so there was not a lot of room for travel and exploration. But growing up in Cleveland, it's one of those cities that's diverse anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And I grew up in, the late 80s, early 90s when segregation was still like a thing. It wasn't officially segregated, but you knew not to go to Little Italy for too long after dark. You know what I mean?
Wow, that's fascinating. And yeah,
Mm-hmm.
10 kids. I did not know that. So wow, 10 kids, there aren't many vehicles that'll hold everybody.
No, we
So
rode deep, man. But she spaced it out though. Like,
okay.
so I'm 36 now. My youngest brother is 20, I believe. I think he's 20 now.
Mm-hmm.
So, there's a bit of space between us. Like, us eldest three boys, we're back to back to back. And then there was maybe a 6-year gap, 6, 7 year gap. Then my little sisters came. So there's quite a bit of space between all of us.
Okay. Okay. So not a lot of experience moving around, but then you hit the military. And I find that so interesting because
Yeah.
and I'd loved your input on this because this generation, you're still in the generation, but I feel like there are more opportunities, especially for people of color to travel globally besides the
Mhm.
military, when traditionally, like, the huge impact that Black veterans had after World War II when they reintegrated in those communities, the Panthers and
Mhm.
things like that. Times have definitely shifted. Have you noticed that as well?
I don't think times have shifted as much. I think the information is more readily accessible. I don't
Hmm.
think it's more outside of economic privilege. I think our community has significantly more economic privilege now, but the same opportunities that existed, 20 years ago are still there. Study abroad programs, Peace Corps, the military. The same opportunities are there. We just have more access to the information now. That's the difference. And you can see representation matters. When you had a world where people of color, and even now in mainstream media, have never been represented as travelers and explorers,
Yeah.
why would a kid think they could? Now you have people like myself, Onika the Traveler, Phil Walkie, Gloria Tomo, Travel Noir, Nomadish. You have all these people of color who are traveling the world. These kids can see us, and like, wait a minute, instead of buying these J's, maybe I want to buy a plane ticket.
Right.
So things are changing because of access to information.
And I'm probably thinking really like 50, 60 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
when that
Yeah,
wave,
well,
especially after World
definitely.
War II, that was it. And still today, I mean, when I tell people, I used to live overseas or I spent some time abroad, people are like, okay, what branch are you in? I'm like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
no.
Yeah, same with me. When
Yeah.
people see me, they automatically assume I was in the military. It's true, but still, like, the
Right.
stigma carries it's on. And honestly, man, I know a lot of brothers and sisters get annoyed by that. And like
Hmm.
for me, I don't think it's something to be annoyed about. I appreciate the military for what it did for me.
Hmm.
I always had a passion for travel, but I didn't know how. Like, I
Right.
used to read Nat Geo, Reader's Digest, like the Watchtower, the little pamphlet the Jehovah's Witnesses used to give you every
Yep.
week. Like, people forget, like, the Watchtower was dope back in the day. I loved it, but it was like I didn't know how, and there was no manual, there was no playbook back then. But the
Right.
military, like, they hit me with a sweet pitch. Like, the pitch was mad simple.
Yeah.
Like, yo, we're gonna pay for your school, we're gonna pay for your family, and you get to travel the world. I'm like, okay, let's go. Like, that was it. That was the
Right.
pitch. That was my recruiter pitch. And he had me signed up. So I think that the military is still a good option for people of color to travel abroad who don't know other ways. However, there are plenty of other ways out there for us to explore more.
Got you. Got you. And is it fair to say that that opportunity though doesn't come without, I mean, on both sides too, because I've being in Texas and being from the East Coast above the Mason-Dixon line, it was just a different idea of what service meant. But I spent
Mm-hmm.
7 years in South Carolina. I currently live in Dallas, Texas. My appreciation, understanding of the environment has changed significantly. I don't know where I was going
Similar
with that.
story to me. I grew up in Cleveland. I got stationed in Texas. I was in Wichita Falls, Abilene, Texas.
Yeah, you're not far.
Yeah, I was in Dallas Air Force Base. That was my first duty.
Not far at all, bro. So let's talk about this engagement into travel. Like, what were your first experiences like, even with the military? What kind of captured your imagination about this?
So like I said, I joined the military before September 11th, and I was in January 2001. So I was right before 9/11 happened.
Right.
When 9/11 hit, the military changed very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, a couple months after 9/11, we were on a plane, I want to say like November, December, like we were on our way overseas. And the first stop was Rhine-Main in Germany, Frankfurt, Germany. I then ended up in Turkey, spent time in Turkey. And then went to, I wouldn't call it the Middle East, or I guess Southern Asia, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan.
Okay.
And it wasn't until I was in Uzbekistan, a place called Samarkand. So we're in Samarkand, a place called K2. And you get these R&R days, because back then we were working, we were basically working 18-hour days, 6 days straight.
Okay.
And they would give us these morale trips into the city. It was Tashkent and Samarkand, if I recall correctly. And we would go in, and I remember it was a tour of about 15 of us, and I was the only Black person. And we go in, and these little kids start running up to us, yelling Mike Tyson to me. Mike Tyson, Mike Tyson, Mike Tyson. And I'm Andrew, I don't look nothing like Mike Tyson. I wasn't even that big back then. And I was talking to our guide, and the guy was saying that Mike Tyson had done a lot. He was like the most famous Black person in that region. Like, he was the representation of Black people. Wow. And it was interesting to me because back then you had Will Smith, you had, Tupac, you had Michael Jordan. But Mike Tyson was the representation of African-American men back then. And this is, 2002. This is like 2002. And it was interesting to me how many people had never seen a Black person, ever. Yeah. And for me, growing up in Cleveland, I had seen Middle Eastern people, I'd seen Jewish peoples, I had seen, white people, Latino, I'd seen everybody growing up. But I had never been in a position where people had never seen me before. So it kind of sparked my interest in, like, man, what is the world really like where, people of color aren't seen and we aren't the norm, So that kind of sparked my wanderlust, as they called it. And that became my primary focus. I started exploring, even when I got stationed back in the States, I started doing a lot more exploring in Central and South America, exploring inside the United States. It was just that first trip overseas did it for me.
Wow. And that is a kind of a shocking thing where, you're so foreign to somebody and you're in a foreign land and it's like, well, how does this work? Like, who's
it's
really
confusing. It's really confusing. And it's like, I know, I sometimes I get in trouble about saying this, but I find, I talk to a lot of people of color and in different groups who direct message me about travel, and they always bring up racism. And people in China, when they go to China, they get offended when people are taking pictures of them. And I'm like, look, guys, you got to understand, like, intent matters. And what most of these people are, it's not a malicious thing. You're a damn giraffe walking through the inner. Imagine if you saw a giraffe walking through the inner city, like how you will react to that. That's what we are to them. Exactly. Or imagine if Beyonce just showed up, like. That's what it is to them. Right. So of course they whip out their camera phones and they engage you and they're curious and they're staring at you and they're whispering. It's not malicious, it's curiosity and confusion. And it's not their fault and it's not necessarily our fault either. It's just the reality of how geopolitics works. It's how segregation has worked. It's how oppression has worked. We haven't been allowed to engage with other people. Now we are. So there's going to come some growing pains from that process. And part of that is being uncomfortable. And we have to be comfortable with being uncomfortable.
Absolutely. I think that's in large part what traveling long-term successfully is about. But on the other side of that, popping on the gram is a big deal, but some of the pictures people are taking, I'm like, how are you engaging with these communities? You complain about some of the ways you're treated, but you are just showing up like.
I just posted about that. I just posted about that on my Instagram. Man, I get so frustrated. And I ask people, and I just did a blog post also about this. I say, part of the premise of this piece was, why are you traveling?
Right.
What are you doing when you left this place? Yeah, sure, you did it for the gram, but what did you learn about Dubai and Marrakesh and Bangkok and Tokyo, right? Yeah, these are some beautiful pictures, and it's amazing to see all that melanin. But what did you learn? What did you leave behind? What did those people learn about you and your history and your culture? If you're not contributing something to international travel, you're removing something. You're not leaving anything behind for those who come behind you. I take my responsibility very seriously as a Black man that has the opportunity and ability to travel pretty much anywhere in the world that I want. So I carry myself a certain way. I engage people a certain way because I understand that I'm likely the first man of color that a lot of people have met in the places that I travel. We're not talking London or Paris, We're talking, Ipoh, Malaysia. I might be the first Black man somebody met. So when the next brother or sister comes behind me, the local can say, hey, I met a Black man who was really nice, and he smiled a lot, and he laughed, and he ate our food, and he engaged with us, and he asked questions, and he tried the language. I think that's a big problem that we have in the Black travel community, is that so many people don't engage.
Right. And, to some aspect, it's a problem with travelers from Western countries in general. I don't spend a lot of time looking at other communities' travel pages, but when you see them post up with a bunch of kids in Ethiopia or Africa, you're like, what was the story here again? Like, why are you here?
What was the thought process behind this? Yep.
Right. What was the intention?
And to be fair, we do that shit too. We do that too.
It's an awareness, and I, like you saying, I think there's kind of like growing pains with these cultures, and as we're able to engage more with each other, be more aware. But I feel like there's a responsibility that comes along with it, and not everybody does, and everyone's got their own thing.
And that's fair, and not everybody sees it, but don't complain. I'm like, yo, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem. Don't complain about it. I'm like, it's the same thing when I talk about like people who tell me they don't vote. I'm like, okay, then you don't have a right to complain.
Exactly.
And for me, like people who don't engage with local communities have no right to complain about, those people being confused when they see a Black person show up.
Right. That energy just kind of circulates. So put out that good, engage. Do you have any suggestions on ways to engage? Maybe like, what are just like 2 simple things somebody can do that would make a difference?
Smile and wave. For me, it's a little different for me because I'm a travel photographer, so I take people's pictures a lot. So I'm significantly more comfortable engaging people that I don't know. But I think I have found that a smile and a wave is probably the easiest way to engage people. I was just in India. India is a very uncomfortable place for me.
Okay.
And throughout India, I have a bit of a temper still when I feel like I'm being sized up.
Yeah.
And I like to let people know I'm not a mark, Right. So if I'd see a group of people staring and whispering and eyeballing me, I'll engage them. I'll go right up to them and say, yo, what's up? Like, how you doing? What's going on? Like, and 99.9% of the time, it's been a positive interaction. Right. Where people was like, oh, how you doing? Hey, what's going on? And it's, oh, where you from? Can we get a picture with you? It's always like that. People are just curious. And when you give them permission to ask questions and engage with you and take a portrait, like people really, really respond. Now, honestly, man, I'm not even lowballing. 99.9% of the time, it's been an entirely positive. And that terrible 0.1% of the time is people just ignore you, or they look at you like you're crazy, or keep it moving. And honestly, a lot of times they don't understand you. They just don't understand, what you're saying sometimes, So that I would say, smile to start. And number 2, I would say really engage. Just go up to people and say hi.
And that's definitely a simple and practical way to do it. And looking at those odds as a gambling man, I'm gonna take 99.9%
Oh yeah, oh yeah, jump
all
in.
day, all
I mean,
day.
really, what's the worst can happen? Like, what is the worst thing that can happen from you walking up and saying hi to somebody versus what's the best thing that could happen?
Right. Which is limitless. That's literally you.
Limitless.
Oh my goodness. The opportunities I'm sure I've had from
Oh yeah.
random run-ins with people, just being at a bar, just being at the right place at the right time. That happens more often to me abroad than in the States.
Yeah. You know, the funny thing is, this was a couple of nights ago. One of my good friends was in town. Mr. Levius, Travis Levius, a
Yeah.
writer. He's a black travel writer.
Yeah, he's been on the
So
show. Big shout out to Travis. What's up?
yeah, Travis, really, I didn't know. So Travis is a great friend of mine. And I took him out. You know, it was his first time in Bangkok, so I took him out of Bangkok. We were running around. So we're at a bar with another friend of ours, and we look through the window and we see maybe 4 people of color.
Mm-hmm.
And we start going back and forth if they're African or Americans.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided to walk in and I ran up on them. Hey, what's going on? How y'all doing? You should have seen the looks on their faces. They're from Philly, by the way. They were from Philly. They were like, what the fuck is, like, we started chopping it up. And then one of the guys was really happy to see us. Like, he was like, but the group, it was actually 8 of them.
Wow.
And a group of 8 people, black folks from Philly, they weren't showing no love except for this one guy. Like, they were looking at us like we're fucking nuts. And I'm like, wow. Like, after they left, dude even came over and said, hey man, thanks for coming over to say hi. It's good to see you. And I was like, yo man, here's my Instagram. If you guys need anything, hit me up. He was like, bet. And they took off. And it was like the other people in the group didn't even want to acknowledge that we existed. I'm like, yo, we three cool black men who know the city, and we trying to, show love, and y'all kind of borderline ignoring us right now. Like when we engage, and I'm like, and it got in my head for a good couple days. I'm like, yo, like, what's up with that? Like why wouldn't you want to engage your people abroad? You know what I mean? So, that was something that caught me off guard.
What's really interesting is speaking of engagement, the global contrast is easy when you go to, it's an easy thing to talk about when you go to another country and they have a different heritage and history and everything like that. There's still many, and especially during the show, I've been so awakened to the fact that there's so much awareness and growing pains within our own community that would lead to a result like you have, or the diversity of stories that come through the show. I'm just like, wow, I had no idea. I never imagined. And it's a beautiful thing for me, but I'm looking for the uncomfortable.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And that's what makes travel worth it. I was like, if I want comfortable, I'll stay home. I get a lot of flack for not hanging out with black people more online and in person. My friends get on me all the time. And I'm like, yo, man, I love our community. I love our people. But there are 2 reasons that I don't hang out with black people as much as I used to. The first thing is I want to go with the unknown. I know us. I know our community. I know how we think. I know how we move, how we speak. Like it's like I would rather hang out with local Indonesians or Thais or Germans or Colombians or Argentinians when I'm in their country. The second thing is, I think a lot of times abroad, we carry our trauma with us. We carry the trauma that we got in Philly, in Cleveland, in New York, and in Phoenix City, Alabama, and Columbus, Georgia, like in Texas with us. And when we get in a group together, that trauma comes back out. And I'm like, oh, guys, like, man, I don't want to be around this, y'all. I love you, but I don't want to hear about this no more. Like, I'm over it for now. And it's that same thing. I don't know if you're familiar with the work of James Baldwin.
Yes.
But James Baldwin is a hero of mine. And in one of his pieces, he was talking about the guilt that he felt as a black man living in Paris while the civil rights movement was in full swing back in the States. And sometimes that's how I feel. I feel disconnected from our struggle at home sometimes. And I feel bad about it.
Yeah.
On the flip side is, as a black man, I'm free to be, if that makes any sense. Here,
absolutely.
Abroad, I'm free. If I want to be a ballerina today, I can be. Nobody's going to judge me out here.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm free to decide who I want to be as a Black man without my community, without society, without the police, without the education system, without the church telling me what that is. You know, so I think it's definitely it's different out here. And when you say, you know, you've heard so many different stories from people of color abroad, man, that's the beauty of this, man. Is we
100%.
are finally free to be who we want to be.
Dude, you're so on brand right now. It's ridiculous. I was just talking to, I don't even know if you know we do this, but we give away passports every month to a man of color to go travel. And
I do the same thing every 4 months. I do the same thing.
well, we need to link up. We need to talk some. We need to talk some talk, brother. After this, but one of the shows that's coming up depending on when this gets released, we're gonna launch it. But we like to celebrate these winners and talk about their stories. And one of the guys was saying, after we wrapped up the call, that hey, I think to be free to be myself. I think we get that taken away from us. And I was like, bro, I know you haven't taken your first trip yet, but you haven't even experienced it yet. Wait till you get out to just the Dominican Republic and come back, and then hit Europe or wherever you're going to. You haven't even tasted it yet until you've been abroad.
And I think I did a piece years ago. I should update this about why every Black man needs to travel abroad. And I think a few of the points that I made in that piece were addressing the toxic communities that we come from and the things that we have to do and learn to survive. I don't know how it was where you grew up, but I know in Cleveland, if you were soft, I'm air quoting right now, if you were soft, you were eaten alive. Cleveland taught you how to throw the first punch.
Right.
Like, it didn't teach you how to de-escalate conflict ever.
Right.
I was never taught how to de-escalate a conflict. Abroad, I've never had an issue with locals in all the years I've traveled, because I've learned by being out of my element, by being out of my environment, how to de-escalate something. Right. Oh man, I apologize. Sorry about that. Let me grab you a beer. With the universal de-escalation technique. I didn't learn that in Cleveland.
You want to go drink? This works every time.
It's wrong, man. Why are we arguing? Because nobody wants that, And It's like, in that piece, it was like, yo, man, you have the freedom to be whoever you want to be, to learn the languages you want to be. Like, you're okay to be that corny ass nigga, as they say. You're free to be that and figure out who you are. Like, now it's relatively okay and cool to be, Donald Glover. It's okay to be that cornball dude now. But when we were growing up, I'm 36, that wasn't okay. And in a lot of communities, it's still not okay. So I think it's so important that we get, and sisters is out here, sisters are out here. They dominate us when it comes to international travel. We got to get more young brothers out here, because not only is that going to help those young brothers, it's going to help our community in general. Because a lot of the toxic masculinity, a lot of the abuse against Black women, a lot of the prison industrial complex, that comes from young brothers not having the opportunity to do something beyond this toxic environment that we're brought up in. So we got to get more of them out here.
Yeah, and I definitely want to pick up on that. I definitely want to pick that up. I took a note on that. I'm also curious to know, how did you create a career for yourself out of travel? So you
by being dope. Come on, man. I'm dope, son. No.
I think that's what Elon Musk says too. He's like, what the fuck y'all talking about? I'm dope.
It's great. Have you met me? I'm giving a talk about this in Italy. I'm speaking at a conference in Italy, and the topic is how to differentiate your voice in a crowded field.
Okay.
So basically, what the premise of this is I'll never be Adventurous Kate or Nomadic Matt, who are both huge bloggers. They're both white.
Right.
I don't look great in a bikini. I'm just being honest. I don't look great in a bikini. But I do have an opinion and a point of view that's unique to me. And nobody else can have that view and that opinion. Right. So all I can do is be the best version of me that I can possibly be.
Right.
And there are a lot of people who think the way I think and who happen to look the way that I look. So by me speaking my truth, I empower them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, 100%.
So I've created a career based on this exact premise that there are so many stories out there that nobody hears about, that nobody has an opportunity to see. And when you look at people like Onika the Traveler, who I love to death, she's like my annoying sister, or a new brother on the scene, Phil Walkie.
Yeah.
When you look at what they're doing, it's because they touch on things that have not been previously touched on. Maybe they've been touched on by white folk, but not black folk.
Right.
My experience traveling the world is going to be different than a middle-class white girl's experience. That's why it's so important for me to do what I do. And people have embraced that. And not only just our community, but white folk, mainstream. They've like, wait a minute, this is a segment that's being underrepresented. Let's see what we can do with him. On top of that, I'm damn good at what I do. I'm damn good at what I do because I've worked for it, because I've worked extremely hard. I've learned. I've engaged with people who are doing what I want to do. And it's interesting because people always say, oh, what's it like to be an influencer? I'm not necessarily an influencer. That's not my job. I'm a travel journalist. I'm a journalist. I seek out the truth. I search for information and facts, and I report back. That's what I do, which is why I've been able to write for so many different publications. I'm a photographer by trade. That's why my images have been posted in so many different places. Like if you look at my Instagram, you don't see selfies of me.
Right.
Like, because I'm not the subject. The destination is the subject. If you look at the work of, say, Anthony Bourdain, and I'm not comparing myself to Anthony at all, but what made him so special is he allowed people to tell their own stories. The communities around Anthony, if you ever watch his show, the communities around Anthony told the stories. That's what I try to do. I try to allow the people of India, of Germany, of Romania, of Colombia, of Thailand to tell the story for me, if not through words, but through images. So that's how I've been able to build this career of mine. And I just keep it moving, man. Like I just keep pushing and pushing and pushing. And that's what it takes, man, because this travel game ain't forgiving, man. It's rough.
For sure, I can understand that. Even from a business side, entrepreneurship is not for everybody. And I consider you definitely, and I mean, you consider you an entrepreneur, but everybody who's not between us, he's an entrepreneur, y'all. So can you talk about those first steps? Like, were you working a job and said, you know what, I've got to, I quit my corporate job and took a one-way flight to Paris. Like that was my story, but not everybody's going to do that. Maybe you laid things out. What was the beginning like for you?
So after I left the military, I went back to the University of Texas and I was studying. And I was working on this piece about the effects of government legislation on minority communities. As I started to do more and more research, I realized how marginalized people are. Mind you, this is something they don't teach in the black school system or our community. How fucked by the government we are. How how these programs are specifically designed to screw over people of color. Like they're designed that way.
Can we break one down right quick for everybody who might not be hip, including myself?
The welfare system. The welfare system.
Talk to me about it.
So the welfare system, in a lot of ways, was designed to break up the black family, where a lot of women or / families wouldn't get benefits if there was a man in the house, or air quotation, a able-bodied adult, which obviously would be the father figure. The prison industrial complex was designed to keep young black men down and in prison when, 41% are African Americans in the prison industrial complex. I mean, it's a system that's been systemically designed. When you take a young black man and a young white man doing the same exact crime, and the black man is disproportionately, or the brown man, Latino shout out, disproportionately higher sentences are given to them. So, I mean, these are systems that are supported and promoted and put in place by government systems.
Got you.
And as I studied and researched these things, and mind you, this was shocking. I don't know if you heard, there was a Pharrell quote in one of his songs. I think it was called Lemonade or Lemon something. He goes, "The truth will set you free, but first it'll piss you off."
Yep.
And that's exactly how I felt.
Yeah.
So I was like, screw this. What helped me? What helped me grow and change and engage and be successful? And it was photography and travel. So I started a small nonprofit foundation called A World Beyond Youth Exploration, where what I did was I wanted to create this foundation to take kids abroad and teach them about photography. It was a horrible fail, an epic failure, because I just didn't know what I was doing. I had no idea how to start or run a nonprofit foundation.
Right.
One of the biggest feedbacks I was getting was Black people don't travel. And I said, to hell we don't. So I ended up taking a contract with the Department of Motor Vehicles in Texas to redesign their training program. So basically back then, what the DMV was doing was they were hiring people and having them sit with somebody who was there forever and learn. That's what their training program was. They had no performance reviews. They had no manuals, really. They had no official program. So as a veteran, I get preferential hiring. Mm-hmm. So I went in, I did an interview, and it happened to be the guy who interviewed me was also a veteran. So basically during my entire interview, we just talked about military life.
Right.
And I ended up getting the position. They gave me a really nice salary for 6 months and an assistant. It was a great job, and I was blessed to be able to just save. That's all I did. So I ended up saving quite a bit of money and selling everything I owned, and that gave me about 19,000 US. I took that 19,000 US and bought a one-way ticket to London. I've been going ever since.
Wow.
And all I wanted to do was to inspire more people of color to travel. That's it. That's always been my goal for Minority Nomad. That was it. Minority Nomad actually only was started to just share my pictures. That's it. That was the purpose of it, was to share my pictures with people. Right. I had no idea for it to grow into what it's become.
Right. And for those who are going to check it out, for you listening at home, you're going to check the shit out because it's dope. He's got a vlog. He's got a blog, very well written. I love great writers. The photography is great. And he's got a video series on YouTube. Y'all need to check it out because it really,
thanks, man. I appreciate it.
It's everything you could be looking for, but from these sort of perspectives that we're talking about, which is why this conversation has a tone to it that I love, because I understand what you're saying, and I think you understand what I'm saying. So it's the reality of this stuff. I love what you're breaking down for us, bro. So let's talk about the growth of the community. What are some adventures that you've had that have just been incredible? What are some of your favorite places in the world that you've seen?
Oh, man, that's rough, man. I've been in 95 countries, brother. It's the more the funny thing is the more I travel, the harder it is to pick a favorite, as they say. But I think Turkey is probably one of my favorite places. Some of the most heartfelt, inspiring experiences I've had have been in Turkey. Romania, I had an opportunity. I was invited to go to Romania for this press trip, and I told them I wouldn't go unless I got to meet with the marginalized community, which would be the Roma people. Mm-hmm. And I went, and I only wanted to go see where they lived and have a quick chat. I ended up talking to one of their leaders, and it was funny because so Roma is a specific language. Mm-hmm. He only speaks Roma. His translator spoke Roma and Romanian. My translator spoke Romanian and English, and then I spoke English. So we literally had 4 of us around a table having an interview, and it was so fun and interesting. And it was funny to see that a lot of the issues that the Roma community have are parallel to African Americans have. Mm-hmm. It's the same treatment. It's just that we have socioeconomic and political power now, and they don't. And it's interesting to see the plight of marginalized communities around the world, like the Rohingya in Myanmar, the entire Roma community throughout Europe, the Aboriginals in Australia. It's like, I think we grow up believing that we're the only marginalized community. Like, and of course, when you're in it, that's all you can think about. Your struggle is your struggle. Right. But when you travel the world and you engage with people who are also marginalized and abused and hurting and struggling, there's this kinship, which is why I think that people of color have been so well received in the travel space globally, is because people understand that we aren't a threat like white folk. Historically speaking, middle-class white men have been the biggest threat to people globally, period. No matter where. That's just a historic fact.
That's just science, y'all.
Yeah, but Africans have never, historically speaking, Africans have never been an aggressor, internationally. So when we come, who came before us, the LeBron James, the Michael Jacksons, the Will Smiths. The Black Panther, Wakanda Forever, when we show up, that's what people think. It's a positive thing. So as I explore and I travel the world, I'm constantly inspired by kids running up and giving me high fives and Wakanda Forever and you look like Obama. And when I have these engagements with people and people are like, oh my God, it was like, you're just like Chris Rock. And I'm like, yeah, this is what Black people talk about.
Right.
This is how we actually talk. Like, that's real, So if I can say anything about travel, and my favorite thing about travel and my favorite places is places where there is a community that's been marginalized that I have an opportunity to engage and talk with and learn and understand about what they're dealing with and how we can raise awareness and be helpful.
Yeah, 100%, because the solidarity, the common narrative in our histories is clearly there. And yeah, it's a beautiful thing. I've fortunately had the opportunity to have similar experiences, not as many as you. And I knew you were going to pick some off the top 10 chart countries or areas as well, which is why I had to force you to answer that question. So I appreciate that. I appreciate that, because people aren't putting down Turkey on their go-to list, or Romania. You know what I'm saying? It's one of the other things about the Instagram and social media culture is it seems like everybody's popping up at the same destinations. I'm just like, damn, we all going to pose for the same photo? Okay. All right. That could be a whole other session. This is going to be the shady travel session, but it's real. There's more out there. It's a big ass world.
Mm-hmm. And this, part of my talk that I'm giving, I'm going to point this out. I'm like, look, stop going to the same places that everybody else is going, please. Thailand is an amazing country, but we don't need more content on Thailand. We need more content on Lviv, Ukraine. Like, it was a place that I discovered totally by accident, and it was one of the best travel experiences I've had in years. But I get it, man. I'm very critical, and I've had to shut my mouth for years now because I'm like, why do y'all keep taking people to fucking Jamaica? Like, why do you keep taking people to Dubai? Why do you keep taking people to the same places over and over again?
Right.
But I understand the fear. I understand that there's safety in numbers. I understand the importance of being familiar. I get it. I totally understand it. And it has its place. But I think anybody who's listening to this, anybody who's curious about how they should start traveling the first time, go someplace you didn't know existed, please, and see what it's like and see what people say.
That's real. That is real. And that's great advice. I have a question I want to ask you, because it's going to be a different angle on something I ask a lot of people on the show. I ask a lot of people what men of color, what Black men have to gain from travel. But with you, my friend, I want to ask, what do Black men stand to lose by not traveling?
Freedom. And let me clarify that.
Yeah, let's get into it.
If you're a Black man who grew up in the United States and has never left the United States, you're not free. You're not free because you've been indoctrinated into a system that is designed to abuse and oppress us and has been very successful at it. And it's not necessarily just about your individual freedom, but it's also about the individual freedom of your brothers and your nephews and the little kid down the street. You're limited in your worldview by what you're presented. And you have not had the opportunity to find out where you truly stand in the world. The Black experience of Americans is not the Black experience of South Africans, which is not the Black experience of Blacks who live in Poland, or those who live in China, or those who live in Japan. And those who have never had the opportunity to leave these places of programming, and we've all been programmed to a certain extent, these places of programming, and don't have the opportunity to be free mentally and to find where they truly fit in the world. I do not believe that most people are born where they belong. They're not, which is why you have, let's just keep it to the Black community. I don't know how old you are, man, but at 36, I remember when it wasn't cool to be a bookworm.
Right.
Like in the 80s and 90s, it wasn't cool to be smart. Like, you were a cornball. That's how it was. So the communities that, look down on education, that's not where somebody who is highly intelligent belongs. They need to be in a space that cultivates that desire and thirst for knowledge. Or let's just call it, if you're a gay Black man, like your community, the people around you should support you and love you despite your sexuality. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, there's so many things about our community in the United States that we complain about the oppressor, but in so many ways we oppress ourselves. We oppress each other. And when you have opportunity to travel, you have that freedom to be whoever you want to be. I cannot tell you how many brothers I've met who are abroad who was like, man, I don't want to go home. I do not want to go home.
Shit.
So many. I'm not going back to the States. If you ever hear about me going back to the States, there are a lot of zeros involved. Right. There are a lot of zeros involved in that contract. I will never live in the United States again. It just won't happen. So back to your original question, what do Black men have to lose? It's freedom. It's freedom.
That's deep, bro. I really appreciate and I'm grateful that you shared it that way, and it was so simplistic, because there's a lot it makes you question things. And I think that just the way we are as people, psychology will tell you that when I tell men of color or Black men, whoever, what they have to gain by travel, all these great things, the experiences and getting to know yourself and growth and all that, whoop-de-woo shit, it's hard to imagine that. But when you talk about losing something, people respond.
Oh, yeah. Negative reinforcement. Like, if you touch fire, you're going to get burned. You know that. You realize that.
Right.
But, when you start talking about, man, it's just a fucking beach. Like, right. I get that reaction. I understand it, because there's no way to describe the feeling of being in a place where you don't speak the language, you don't know the culture, you don't know the food, all by yourself, and how freeing that is. Like, oh man, I remember I grew up and I wanted to be a ballerina, but nah, man, my cousin said that was gay, so I didn't do it.
Yeah.
And then being in a place where you can. Like, it's hard to, let's step back. Have you ever heard stories of freed slaves that stayed with their slave master?
Yeah.
It's because they couldn't imagine freedom. When you're oppressed your entire life, when you're controlled and indoctrinated and programmed your entire life, and then somebody presents you with freedom, whoa. Think about how many young brothers that we've seen who grew up poor and then became millionaires and blew it all. Mm-hmm. Because they don't know what to do with it. They've never been taught. Like, it's like a sick joke. It's like a sick joke. It's like, yeah, here's everything you've ever wanted. Do something with it. And they're like, what the fuck am I supposed to do with it? I don't know. Like, I've lived a certain way for 25, 30 years. How am I supposed to live a different way?
Right. It's like giving your teenager the keys to your Aston Martin or your Lambo.
Yep. Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah, that's real. I really appreciate that. We haven't had that perspective shared, and from such a strong point of view. I can feel the energy. Y'all ain't here right now, but it is past midnight in Dallas. It is literally halfway across the world, and the energy is strong right now. So on the other side, because empathy is one of the things that is kind of one of my focus words for the year, and that sounds ridiculous. But empathy, I see the stuff on Instagram. I see how people are processing, and I just really put out the energy that they'll grow through it, just as I'm trying to grow through things. But how can someone best get started traveling? You mentioned solo travel. You mentioned a place you've never gone to. Can you give us the 3 steps for making this shit happen?
So I think, first step is make the decision that this is a priority in your life. I think a lot of people, they'll come at me and say, oh man, I love what you're doing, man. I wish I could do what you do. I say, yeah, you can. I'm not a fucking unicorn. Like, what I'm doing is not special. I'm going to be clear. Like, I don't believe what I do is special. I made a plan and I engaged. That's it. It's my job. It's what I do.
Right.
I'm not, for example, LeBron James is special. Erick Prince is not that special. You can't be LeBron James, but you could be me. if that makes any sense. I think Stephen A. Smith recently, he was given like $4 million a year. And he said that, you can't be LeBron or Michael Jordan or Kobe, but you can always be Stephen A. Smith. I feel the exact same way about it. First off, make a decision that travel is a priority. It is a priority. It's not, something you wish you could do, or it's not a side thing. It is your life priority. It's more important than playing Xbox. It's more important than going to the club. It's more important than buying the newest clothes. It's more important than watching Netflix. Travel has to become your priority. That's number one. Number two, you have to create a plan and execute it. Okay, I'm going to work an extra side job. I'm going to do an extra 3 hours driving for Uber or Lyft, or I'm going to make red velvet cakes and sell those for $15 every Sunday at church. Or I'm going to go to garage sales and buy something for $1 and sell it on eBay for $5. I'm going to do something and execute it. Everybody's got a plan, but not everybody can execute it.
Facts.
And thirdly, don't listen to black folk. And let me say this, and let me tell you why. Because so many people in our community have been traumatized, not only by outside forces, by inside forces, by aunties and uncles and family members saying, "Oh man, you don't want to go to Romania because they're racist." Like, well, have you ever been to Romania? What the fuck are you talking about? Like, right. What are you talking about? Oh, don't go there as a solo female because they're gonna rape you. But have you ever been there and been raped? No. Then what are you talking about? It comes from a place of love, but it also comes from a place of ignorance and programming. So when you look at this, when you're getting information, make sure that the source is a source of experience. There are people who've experienced these things and know what they're talking about. And I'm just joking about not listening to black folk. There are plenty of ignorant ass white folk too. So
right.
So those would be the three things.
Listen to us, but I know where you're going with this. But that's a very real thing, and you're right. It's a lot of times it comes from care and concern. But if you're in your 40s or 50s and haven't fulfilled your dreams, I can't take your advice for how to execute on mine. Yeah.
It's easy to project that. It's easy to project that failure, and I use failure very loosely. Mm-hmm. So easily to project that on other people, even inadvertently. My parents did the same thing to me. I'm just a fucking hardhead. My mother will tell you that. I'm hard-headed. Like, that's why I've been so damn successful, because I don't listen to nobody. Like, I've been successful because I do not listen to people's advice. And it's, it's beneficial and problematic at the same time.
Right. You also value the advice that you give yourself more than anybody else. And that's
100%.
That's self-esteem and confidence. Is great.
D.L. Hughley was just talking. He was on Sway in the Morning. I was, and I love and hate D.L. at the same time. And I was watching D.L. and D.L. was talking about why he has no problem with pissing people off. He was like, "Look, I value my opinion more than I value yours." He's like, "I have to look at myself in the mirror every single day. And I feel the exact same way." It was like, if I'm not happy with myself, if I bite my tongue for fear of offending somebody, it's going to offend me. Like, I have to speak my truth. I have to. Yeah. It's just the way I'm built. Like, and I'm okay with being checked. I welcome being checked. Yep. Like, for example, India, I'm writing up my script for India, and it's not pretty what I have to say about my experience in India. It is not pretty at all. And I posted on Instagram about, I didn't even say anything negative. And I posted on Instagram about, how we have to talk about the positives and the negatives if we want to influence people in travel, if we want to truly make a place better. And, a couple people from India came in or just went in on me already. And I'm like, guys, I haven't even said anything yet. You might want to unfollow me now before I actually post what I got to say.
Right. It gets bumpy. Strap in.
It gets bumpy. Like, it really does. I was like, some people can't take the truth and the reality of it. But that ain't my problem. That ain't your problem. Like, if you tell me, like, "Yo, Prince, like, your photography is whack," I'm like, well, what's whack about my photography? And I want to know. It's like, oh, the colors are oversaturated. The sharpness isn't there. The composition is bad. And I'll look and I'll process it. And I'll ask myself, yeah, shit, he's right. Because sometimes you do need an outside perspective.
Right.
but it has to be honest. It's got to be honest. If you tell somebody everything is gravy, like, I know I'm not a great writer. People like the way I write. In my opinion, I'm not a great writer. Travis is a phenomenal writer. Like, that's who I compare myself to. So when you try to be a better you, when you try to be a better man, you try to be a better photographer, you try to be a better father or brother or friend or just a human, you have to deal with the very hard truths. And the hard truths start by telling the truth and being comfortable with receiving it as well.
Yeah, bro. I know we hit a lot of notes throughout this period, the short period we've been together, but I can't think of a better one to wrap up on, man. That's something to think about. That's some fat to chew on, as they say. I appreciate you, as I consider you an adventurer. Travelers are the people who vacation in its leisure. You have been using travel as a proxy for growth, and you keep pushing it, and you're committed, and you're supporting the culture. And I wish more people could understand all the underlying things that would get someone like you to get anyone to speak the way you're speaking right now. The amount of work you've done in yourself, the amount of experiences, the amount of times you've probably fallen on your face and gotten checked, but then the things that you said, you know what, I'm not going to stay down,
Yeah, daily, man, daily. I mean, like Peter Baelish on Game of Thrones said, chaos is a ladder. I'm like, I think failure is a ladder. Yeah. I think every day, and this is one of my biggest things, empathy. I lead with empathy. Yeah. Always. Everything I say, everything I do. My content is designed to entertain and educate. If it doesn't do those two things, I don't post it. And fail every single day at something. Just fail. People are so afraid of failure, not because of failure, but because of how other people see failure. Yeah. And personally, and I tell everybody, I am proud of your failure. I am proud to see you fail, because it means you're trying to grow. You're trying to change. You're trying to be better than you were yesterday. I'm an athlete. I've been an athlete and an artist my entire life. Do you know how much failure comes through athletics and art?
Constant.
Daily, constant failure. LeBron James ain't hit all his shots. Come on, y'all. Right. Like, Jimi Hendrix didn't hit every note. Like, Beyonce has an off night. Like, it's just the way it is, guys. And if I can leave this with anything within our community, even people who don't decide to travel, try to fail every single day. And I promise you, you'll be a changed person in no time.
Big facts. My guy, you have been crushing it right now. I'm amped. It's like I'm about to go to work for the next 2 hours, man. But before I do that, before we round out, and I really hope that this all comes through clearly on the recording. We're using a different software, y'all, but don't worry about the technical stuff. What do you have coming up? Where are your next trips? How can we find out more about you? Do you have any projects you're working on? Talk to me. All of it.
Oh, man, it's about to be a big year, brother. Big year. So I just finished up a 3-month tour. I was in Brunei, Malaysia, and India. I came home to Bangkok. A lot of people don't know I actually live in Bangkok when I'm off the road. I came home to Bangkok to spend some time, catching up on projects, signing contracts. So I just signed a contract with URail. A lot of people know them as Interrail, and promoting train travel. So I will spend, I leave here on Monday. I go spend a few days in KL. Then I fly to Istanbul. I'll be in Istanbul eating food for about 5 days, doing food tours and cultural exploration for 5 days. I fly from there to London, and then I'll be exploring Europe for about a month until I'll be doing compare and contrast cities. So basically what I'm doing is I'm going to different countries. I'm going to 9 different countries and comparing a well-known city versus a not so well-known city. So like in France, I'll be doing Paris and Lyon, nice. Madrid and Sevilla in Spain. Then I fly to speak at Traverse in Trento, Italy in the mountains. So I'll be there for about 6 days for that conference. Then I'll make my way through Central Europe. I fly back to the U.S. to speak at TravelCon in Boston. So if you're in Boston at the end of June, come and see your boy.
Yeah.
I'll be speaking at TravelCon with a lot of amazing other Black content creators. I know Black and Abroad will be there. I think Gloria Tomo's going. Ernest White III, Onika the Traveler was there last year. I mean, it's like a Black travel family reunion at TravelCon. So come through Boston if you can. I'm going to spend a couple weeks with family doing a trip to Vegas. Then I'm back to Europe, August and September. Going to I'm actually going to go to Northern Africa and Southern Europe to explore the history of the Moors, the Moorish Empire.
Yeah.
Then I'll be bringing my mom on her first international trip in October for her birthday, taking her to Thailand for about 2 weeks. So that's my schedule through October.
Wow. And you have it down to the dates and details. That's impressive enough. If nothing has impressed you about this damn session, that right there, because I'm like, shit.
I'm a planner, man.
hey, when we all have our gifts.
Yeah.
I outsource my.
Yeah, I hear that, Jerry, man. I appreciate it, brother.
So how can we best find you? Because I know you have a lot of different access to channels and stuff. Talk to me about that.
Well, biggest is Instagram. If you want to keep up with my up-to-date, like right away, what's happening with Erick right now, Instagram. Minority Nomad is Instagram. If you want to see, my work, my photography, my writing, minoritynomad.com. YouTube channel, Minority Nomad. I'm extremely slow on my YouTube uploads, but I eventually get them done. And Facebook, Facebook and Instagram are the best ways to reach me. And email, the Minority Nomad at Gmail. So Minority Nomad everywhere, pretty much.
That's what's up, bro. And that's why I wanted to ask, because when you got that many channels, I know everybody can't be getting priority on all the channels, but
it's Instagram. Instagram's priority. So if anybody really wants to get at me right away, Instagram, you'll get me real quick.
IG, hit up those DMs, y'all. Dude, this has been great, man. This has been enlightening, and I love the perspective, just the tone, man. Again, diversity and different perspectives. I appreciate that in just being a conduit in this platform right now. So dude, thank you so much. Safest of travels. Anything you want to share before we sign off?
No, man, I want to thank you so much for having this opportunity, man. I don't get a lot of opportunities to speak directly to a Black audience, and I always appreciate it. I absolutely love what you're doing, man. I think it's absolutely brilliant. Thanks for giving everybody these voices and sharing them with the world, man. We really appreciate it. We get, so wrapped up in, representation in the travel space and, contracts and the corporate world. And, sometimes we get behind with engaging with our own people. So thank you so much for giving me this opportunity and inviting me on, man. I appreciate it.
Thanks for making the time. I know you're a busy, man, and the pleasure's all mine. So safe travels, bro. Until next time, when you're at the point, man.
For sure, man. I'll come through Dallas, man. We got to get a beer, man.
Beer, shots, bro. I only drink beer. I do local beers in foreign places. That's what I say.
I hear that. Tequila.
Exactly. We'll talk next time, bro. Appreciate you.
Later, brother.
All right. Peace. Really, when you think about it, if you invite a travel OG onto your platform, you expect some OG level game to be spit, and Erick definitely delivered that. Thank you so much, Erick. That's Minority Nomad, y'all. Make sure you follow him on Instagram at Minority Nomad and check out all the amazing content he's curating and creating at minoritynomad.com. Maybe even pull up at TravelCon. This isn't a plug for TravelCon, but hey, there's going to be a lot of other cool people there too. I hope you were challenged by this. I hope this expanded some of your mind, some of your thinking when it comes to travel, and maybe even encourage you to go out and explore the world differently than you would have if you hadn't heard the session. If that gets done, hey, I feel like we did some good here today. That being said, in some current news, unfortunately, just yesterday, the spire of the Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris caught fire, and I have been devastated since I first learned about it. I had one of my French friends texted me the news. They got it a little bit faster than I did, and I've just been seeing posts of this building on fire and people posting selfies, and it's been crushing for me. Notre Dame was a really important place for me when I stayed in Paris. I was man, I used to drink right next to it. I used to, wave hi there when I was, walking home from jam sessions at 3 a.m. Like when things were really rough for me in Paris, Notre Dame, which is always in the back of my mind. That was a place where I could find some peace and some solitude. And I just want to encourage everybody, as you explore, as you think about exploring the world, it's nice to post up and take these classic pics that you see everybody taking, but it never hurts to peek around the corner and see what else you might be missing out on, what else you might stand to gain or appreciate just by, just walking around the building and seeing that beautiful spire and the sophistication of that Gothic architecture. Just the way the building is made is amazing, and there are so many people who will never be able to see it in its true glory, even though they were right around the corner from it. So keep that in mind as you travel out. Hope you travel well, travel safely, and we will see you next week back here at The Point. As always, this is Jerry the Third, aka Kimono Jack, signing off. Peace.